Yeah.
All right, so my name is Terry Diane Chalky, and my work is called Living Love Revolution. This is a part of it. Creating thriving cultures of self-love that are sustainable throughout Cascadia. And I'm one of those serious people that's really into the Cascadia bioregional as an actual thing that I think is achievable in my lifetime. I'm very excited about it. That makes me an environmentalist for sure, and very conscious of my eco-self. So what's going on right now? I teach all kinds of things. The purpose of this course is to try to open source a community holistic peer counseling network, and all of the things that are available on the Canvas Instructure learning module are free for you to have if you want them, and you don't have to agree to commit to take the course or be here with us. You just have to give us your email address and we'll send you that as a permanent resource for you. But the course is best in person, embodied, which is why we have a group of you there in Seattle. There's a group of us here. There are some individuals in other cities. And this is kind of the best we could do in terms of technology and embodiment. So I apologize in advance for the ways that it's clunky, that there are computers looking at us, and we're we're moving towards this kind of Borgian. Is that a word?
Co-opting the Borgian technologies.
What I mean is cyborg.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a whole bunch of really intelligent information. Hi. About cyborgs. And Annie Sprinkle and Beth Stevens actually said something about being pro-cyborg a little while ago, and I'm going to have a conversation with them because they're my ecosexual heroes, and I'm not quite sure what they mean. But it might be something like this, that in order for those of us that are resonating to be with each other, we need to use technology. And I know that Paul Stamets believes that the internet was invented by the earth, kind of pressuring us to imitate the morphic field of mushrooms and mycelial mats. I'm going to go with that. He says the internet structure, the structure of mycelium and dark matter are the same. I'm going to keep teaching this whether it's just me here or you all show up and there's people there or not, because I'm doing this because it pleases me and I have a very clear vision of the kind of culture I want to live in. And I myself need this kind of exquisite, consensual, emotional maintenance to not be mentally ill in the mainstream culture's definition of things. I need to be able to have the freedom and the space to fully express my feelings without being demonized, projected against, or abandoned. And I'm willing to bet that you all need to have that as well. You've just never really been able to ask for it before. Okay? All right. Because right now I want to have us all ground. So we're going to take a breath. And we're going to notice that as we breathe in through our nose or our mouth, the air is a little bit cooler. And as we exhale, it's a little moister, a little warmer. And call yourself to yourself. Gather yourself. Bring your consciousness to you as if you're a magnet. And everything you were thinking about outside the room is now coming into the center of your being. Gather your consciousness and come into your body. And the direction of your awareness is going to now come back and down. Recall that your lungs move in 3 directions, at least. In the front, in the back, and the sides. As you inhale, see if you can expand in all 3 of those directions. And as you exhale, contract. I'm going to begin speaking more slowly. I want you to keep breathing deeply and fully, relaxing more and more, becoming more and more aware of your felt experience, the information that your body and your senses make available to you. If anything that I say doesn't work for you, make up something that does. If you can't follow what I say, simply return to the simple experience of inhaling and exhaling and breathing. And now that we have a baseline of inhalation and exhalation, I'd like you to follow this visualization in your mind's eye using your imagination. Imagine that your spinal column has a column of light right before it that goes to the middle pillar, the middle of your body. And as you breathe, you're kind of scanning that pillar and noticing that everything is flowing exactly as it should. And the light in there is this kind of golden, effervescent light. For me, it kind of looks like ginger ale. I like that. Work whatever color or texture works for you. And if you see or feel anything that doesn't seem quite right, just pretend that your breath is magic and blow and exhale through any obstacle or anything that's causing a lack of flow. Make little adjustments if you need to, so your spine is somewhat straight and your feet are touching the ground and you feel balanced in the way that you're sitting. Now find the bottom of your body. It can be your perineum, it can be your sits bones, it can be your whatever works for you as the bottom of your body, the pelvic floor, whatever works for you. And in this place in the bottom of your body, we're now going to open a portal so that we can extend our energy body and merge with the earth below us. Because this is how we ground and how we get more centered and how we exchange energy with the earth. So with this next exhale, create a cord of some kind. It can be a tree root or a monkey tail or whatever works for you, whatever image, an anchor, a rope, whatever image works for you. But you're going to send this grounding cord down through whatever you're sitting on and down through the floor below your feet. And this next exhale sends you down through the floor below this floor and into the basement and the foundation. And this exhale breath goes through the rest of the building and out into the dirt, the loam, the soil, the source of all sustenance. Immediately sense the life force in the earth. And if you can, just sense just a little bit of just like, flow, energy, resonance. Continue now with this exhale to explore the rest of the crust of the earth. There are many little creatures there, a lot of life forms there, bacteria, everything. Just notice them and continue downward, down and back. With this exhale, move now into the mantle of the earth and notice the larger deposits of minerals and ore, water tables there. Now moving down to the magma and lava. Now coming to the iron magnetic core. And moving inside of that core, suddenly we're within the element earth and it's quite spacious. It opens up. It's quite spacious. And there is an ancestral being there. For me, this is Gaia. Allow it to be whatever works for you, or simply go back to breathing. The important part here is that you have an experience of being welcome and belonging, as if Gaia greets you and says, yes, you belong here. in this body, in this moment of time, on this very planet. And let that be so for you. Let there be a sense of welcome and belonging in this body, on this planet, in this moment of time. Let that be so for you. And now we have about 3 more breaths to just let go of anything that's not serving you in this moment, in this embodied experience, in this time. You can make noise if you need to, or wiggle or move. It's just to let go and release anything that's not serving. And then, quick as the thought form or the blink of an eye, Gaia does one of the things she does best. It's such a blessing for us. She recycles everything that we've released and turns it into a healing, revitalizing life force, this zestful, golden green sap of life. So now focus on your inhalation and bring this juicy, erotic life force up from the center of the planet into your body. So that with this breath, you feel it come into that cord that you let down and come up the soles of your feet. And on this breath, it flows into your pelvic bowl, all the way up to your belly button. On this breath, it fills the cavity of your torso, goes all the way up into your heart, flows down the channels of your arms, out the palms of your hand. This breath comes all the way up through your throat and into your third eye, clearing your vision, your ability to speak your truth and be expressed. This inhalation comes out the top of your head and flows gently in a fountain down the outside of your body, cleansing your aura, making a complete circuit. So now you are firmly grounded in the earth and channeling life force up through the center of your body and back down. I invite you to keep this fountain of connected energy going as long as you'd like. And this is what it's like to be grounded. You can return to this state of being grounded whenever you like by saying that self out loud in your mind, I'm grounded, or out loud in your mind's eye. And you can practice the resonance of this whenever you need to be centered in your body. If your eyes are closed, please open them gently now. Notice that you're in a little grove of other trees with grounding cords. You can come back and be awake and aware. And now we can introduce ourselves from a much more restful place, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so I've already said my name is Terry Chalky. I think we'll introduce the people in Portland first. Jim, is that okay with you?
Yes, please.
Okay. Alina, you're the second two-timer. Coming back.
Hi, I'm Alina.
Oh, and say a new and good. I'm sorry, say something new and good or recent and decent, which is something that was uplifting or inspiring that happened to you in the last 2-3 days. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, girl.
Yeah. Again, I'm Alina, and I started magic school this weekend, and I'm really excited about it. And I get to do this too at the same time. Yay.
Mm-hmm.
Chicks.
I'm Amanda. Hello. And I've just begun rehearsing for a 10-minute play festival.
Ooh. Fun.
Yeah, Actons.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Sam, and I just scheduled another birth doula interview. It's really exciting. I love that work.
I'm Brina, and I'm excited because I just started playing the ukulele.
Nice.
And that's been really fun. Not having played any other stringed instruments ever, and music really. So.
I'm Daniel Frontino Elash, very named Comrade Daniel. I got fucking healthcare. I'm working it too.
Yay!
I'm totally stoked.
My name is Jordan Weiss, and I'm excited for all our relations that are beginning to wake up because of the warm weather that's recently hit the Pacific Northwest. Check.
My name's Pamela, and I'm starting to feel that springtime fire too, and just applying for a bunch of internships and making new relationships and just feeling really upwardly expansive and great.
Awesome.
I'm Mark, and I'd say the thing I really enjoy about today is that I didn't have to wear a coat outside.
Okay, that's the people here. Let's hear who's here in Seattle.
Okay.
Is that me?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Colonel Schultz. I'm happy because I found some buddies to go running with, and we actually went running last time. So just hanging out around the house. So.
Awesome.
Yay.
Hi, Jerry. Benny Stack here. Good to see you. Just started a binaural beats meditation, which is going really super well and is very positive and going deep, easier. And Girl Scout cookie season is almost done.
I'm Moss, and in that same vein, we started planting my beans for my garden indoors in pots, and they started sprouting.
Yay!
Wow. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Cassie. I'm in this production for Spring Mysteries Festival, and we had a Muse sleepover weekend where all the Muses got together, and that was a riot and a half.
Oh, yeah.
And last but not least, I'm Johanna, and I just started a 10-month visual journal workshop.
Nice.
Which is going to push me out of my comfort zones.
How lovely is that? Good. How are you, Jim?
Hi, I'm Jim Barker, or Jimbo, and my doing good is Cascadia Holistic Peer Counseling.
Rah, rah. Okay. We're going to talk about something called the foundational theory of Cascadia Holistic Peer Counseling. I'm going to be super interested in this. But I taught it for 10 years, right? And I stopped teaching it because the brain science wasn't quite up to spec. So there's a part here where it says, this is where we need to insert the interpersonal neurobiology and brain science of Dan Siegel and other people. And then later, after a break and some other paired exercises, I do that tonight. So some of this is old and we know that, just so that you know. The good news is that this is all foundational theory from reevaluation counseling, and that I learned this from Amara Karuna, who's actually going to be here quite a bit this summer and being doing things with the Living Love Revolution, which is fabulous. She's coming to Surrender. She's coming to the summer camp. And so all of this is a grassroots system of person-to-person healing based on people's individual experiences, and also what happened to a bunch of working-class guys that were working at Boeing in the 50s. One of their friends on the same night shift crew had a psychotic break, and they actually didn't have the luxury of the health care. They didn't want to take him to a mental health facility. So they took shifts with him, watching him for 5 days. And during that time, the guy would go for hours of really deep crying, and then he would shift into hours of laughter, and then he would shift into raging. And they just took shifts taking care of him, and he eventually, it subsided, this kind of emotional storm that he had, and he was able to go back to work. And they were like, hey, what was that we just did? And from that first pivotal experience, the reevaluation counseling arose. So people taking care of each other in a peer counseling system based on their actual experience of what was happening in their own bodies, instead of, most psychology comes from theoretical positions. And, it's not that old as a field. Psychology only has been around really as a field since the 40s. So we know about that. You can use co-counseling on really different levels. Peer counseling can be worked on any different level. You can use it to blow off steam, which is something I do. I have a couple of minis a day, or usually when I first see people, I now have this relationship with a leader where I go, can I just tell you something? And we just kind of go, blah, and get the experiences that are clouding us, keeping us from being deeply with each other, out of the way. Or you can do it as a deep long-term therapy that systematically changes all of the patterns that you now think are just how you are. You know, you can go back, even some people believe you can clear historical trauma, that a lot of what we think is ethnicity is trauma that's passed on intergenerationally or that is still coming from specific places in the land. And lots of people have done very interesting experiments with varied results around those ideas. But mostly we want you to get the idea that whatever of these ideas work for you, keep those. And whatever doesn't work for you, throw it out. The history of this counseling right now is Amara learned RC. She didn't like some parts of it. She added what at the time was called psychic skills. And she added somatic presencing and the work that she learned from Gay and Kathleen Hendricks and taught it to me. I taught it. I added more stuff about sexuality and witchcraft and proxemics. And I taught it to India Turner, who turned it into inner wisdom counseling and lost the oppression theory stuff. I'm really interested in oppression theory, so that's still in this class. We'll learn that in class 9. Nicole Shapiro learned it from Chris. I taught Kristen Rawson. Kristen taught Nicole. Nicole specifically does it with parents and doulas. It's called HPC for birth. And she's now branching out with her mom to do HPC for body work and HPC for sexuality. So there's a pretty vital community all throughout Cascadia. And by the end of this course, we're going to have a Holistic Peer Counseling and info site up that posts everyone's classes so you can see all the variety of things that are available. So the first question I want to ask you is, what are human beings really like? Underneath all of their distress, what are children like? How are we when we're born? Do you have any ideas?
We like to cuddle.
We like to cuddle, definitely.
Innocent.
We're
Let's
innocent.
wipe it off.
Yeah.
Like sponges.
Like sponges. Yeah, we soak things up, don't we?
That look.
Any other ideas?
I think curious and loving and craving connection.
Talking about this all day. Like, this is like right up my alley. This is Benny, Terry.
Hi, Benny.
And since I've lived with little kids all day,
Yep.
I just have to say that they are beautiful, unencumbered, unpolluted geniuses. They're open to everything. They're closed to nothing, and they love to explore and learn.
Beautifully said.
Yay! So that's what we think here. In Holistic Peer Counseling and in Reevaluation Counseling, we believe that our basic true nature is incredibly intelligent, zestful, loving, compassionate, cooperative, and that we would be like this all the time. That we have limitless potential, we're whole, complete, unique, and that's our true nature. And that nothing can actually take that true nature away. Things can cover it up, but it never goes away anywhere. So if this is our inherent true nature, how come the world is so messed up? How come there are so few people running around being compassionate, kind, and beautiful and innocent all the time? Ideas?
Ideas.
The reason that we have is that
scared.
We get hurt. That's right, you get scared, we get hurt. So what happens is our thinking process works really well up until we get hurt, okay? And the basic idea of what intelligence is, how intelligence is defined in the system, welcome Jason, come on in, is that intelligence is the ability to respond to a new situation from a fresh, appropriate way when thinking while we look at the present situation of this moment, which has never occurred before, and we have a unique response that's just appropriate to this moment that's never occurred before. We just compare it to past experiences and create a new, precisely tailored, successful response. And we're naturally vastly intelligent. Animals have the same kind of a capacity instinctually that we do, but they don't have a cerebral cortex, so they can't anticipate what's going to happen in the future. We still have our animal brains, our medulla oblongata, our first brain there, which causes us to react with a startle reflex if we see something that we think is frightening or upsetting. But these instinctual responses from this first brain aren't very flexible, and they don't work well in every situation. An example of that is that if there's a possum, like on the road, and a car comes, he like does this freeze thing. Well, freezing is not the best response in that situation. You might get run over. And we resort to our basic animal intelligence of our first brain when our amygdala tells us that we're in danger. Our cerebral cortex gets hijacked by the amygdala, right? So if we get startled or we're frightened, so basically an experience of fear will cause us to contract and we'll stop being flexible and open and vastly intelligent. Do people have those experiences? Does that seem true to you in your body? So we get hurt. People don't always act according to their true nature because they get hurt. We get hurt physically, mentally, emotionally, psychically, on all levels, energetically, right? And when we're being hurt, our thinking process shuts down or seems to work differently. People don't think well when they're hurting. Have you ever tried to think when you have a headache? Or if you're a person like me, I have chronic pain. If I wake up in the morning and my pain body is really strong, I know I have to shorten my to-do list for that day because I am just going to get less done. It's just not possible for me to be as productive or as relaxed when there's a lot of pain present. So all the sights, sounds, and smells of an event that happened when we're distressed get clogged up. Let me try to explain this. How many people saw the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? They used Candace Pert's work. Candace Pert discovered peptides, and she's dead now, but she wrote a brilliant book called Molecules of Emotion. And in that book, she discovered that peptides are receptors. Oxytocin is one of those things. Serotonin is one of those things. Dopamine. They're peptides and they're hormones, and they can pass the blood-brain barrier. Okay? They're both in our bloodstream, and then they're in with oxygen and other things. Does that make sense? So they work in our nervous system, and they work inside of our bloodstream. Those peptides and slash hormones are what accelerate when we need to protect ourselves, or are present when we're in deep places of pleasure. Okay? So when, I'm going to use this classic example. I mean, people have probably heard this before. We're going to say we're 3 years old, and we're in a park, and we're with our mom, and there's a dog, a little black Westie, right? And the dog comes up and pushes us down, and we start to cry because the dog pushed us down, and we're scared, and maybe it tugs at us or bites our heels a little bit, and we go, oh my God, I'm upset, I'm scared, and we start to cry, and our mom comes over and says, stop crying, you're a big boy, you're a big girl, you don't need to cry. And so we stop having the natural flow of response, which would clear our energy. And all of the sensory inputs that were coming into us go into a state of overwhelm and flood and light up a specific neural pathway in our brains, in our nervous system. So that the color red that you're wearing, the color black from the dog, the green from the grass, all of this information is there, but it doesn't ever relax and get integrated. It stays slightly lit up, right? So when we are talking about having a trigger, that's what the physiological process is. A trigger is relating to a neural pathway that's still kind of lit up, that hasn't relaxed. It still keeps you on slight alarm. Does that make sense? Now, in a minute, I'm going to explain what the actual natural healing process of our body is and how being with those states of emotion, which are energy in motion, how being with those states of energy could allow us with safe, neutral witnessing to integrate those experiences, and then we could actually decide what neural networks we wanted to grow, and we could choose to move towards calm and connect circuitry instead of fight or flight. But what our experience is now is that we don't have trust in our own ability to be with what happens in the world. We get frightened about our own experiences because all of the things that happened that triggered us have lit up all these different neural networks in our brain that are in a slight state of, well, you know how you feel, alarm. There's a little bit of shaking because that energy is still trying to resolve itself. And it's so powerful that we will keep recreating similar situations because our bodies really want to get integrated. They really want to resolve those alarmed neural networks. And so we will magnetize to ourselves similar situations and go on this little Ferris wheel ride of over and over. Now there's a dog and it's still a black dog. Now I can't go into parks. Now the color red causes me to have heart palpitations because a thing called the snowballing of distress occurs. We believe that we're not able to be with our emotional experience. We get an experience mostly from parents and adults when we're children. It's called contagion, where they say, oh, no. We take our mirror neurons, take in, like sponges, their sense of alarm. We stop our own body's process in order to please them and align with them. And we're in a constant state of anxiety. There's a way out of this. And what it is if, like in an ideal situation, as soon as we were experiencing a hurt or an alarm, there would be a neutral witness there that would just watch what happened, and your body's natural healing process would take over. So the body's natural healing process looks like this. For things that are about fear, fear is released through cold, sweat, and shaking, like, right? So if you ever see an animal, like a tiger or a deer, I'm sure you've seen a tiger, but there's a classic example of a tiger. When they get out of a dangerous situation, they stop and they shake like this for several minutes. And when they're done shaking, they've integrated the alarm into the rest of their body system, and they're done and they go on, right? The experience of grief is resolved through tears and sobbing, crying and releasing lymph. You know how we get snotty? This is partly how we release grief, okay? The body's trying to clean it up. The experience of anger is released through loud sounds and large physical movements and sweat, which is why people yell when they're angry, because they need to release it, right? The experience of physical discomfort and pain is released through yawning and stretching, right? Yawning and stretching. The release of shame and embarrassment is through laughter and the hot flushing, okay? And then all of these things can be released lightly through animated, non-repetitive talking. So you know how you're holding it together and then you see somebody you really like and you just go blah, 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 blah. That's a release of emotional distress, okay? So if we could make an agreement as a group not to interrupt each other's natural healing process, and we could make an agreement in the group to take turns, because basically the Hendricks say all arguments are two people trying to get attention at the same time. You could say, okay, I'm as distressed as you are. Who's going to go first? 10 minutes. I won't interrupt you. I'm just going to give you great witnessing attention, and then you do me. You can diffuse a lot of situations because really your body's just really powerful and it wants to have its healing process. And you've conceptually shut it down from an early age. So this holistic peer counseling process is really a process of restoration, self-restoration, restoring you to your own natural healing cycle. Does that make sense to people? Okay, so how do we know when people are in the grips of control patterns or distress? What do you notice about people when they're in a trauma state? And now we can say almost all of it is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, right? Because I have PTSD just because I live in a patriarchal, oligarchic, capitalistic, all right, racist, sexist, homophobic, not free culture that doesn't like witches, right? So all of that, just being in the mainstream, exposed to mainstream media all the time, is traumatic for me. And there's a lot of energy kind of flowing at me to keep me from being as free as I am. But what we notice about people when they're in different states of trauma and PTSD is that they are disassociated to some degree. How do we know that? They're not having flexible, fresh, open, unique responses to the moment in front of them. They're saying things, sometimes they're talking to people and speaking into a context that's not present. Has this ever happened to any of you in Seattle? Have you ever been talking to somebody and suddenly they're like, well, Bob, blah, 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 and your name is not Bob? So, and people in the grips of old distress patterns will do the following things. They'll say things that aren't pertinent. They'll do things that don't work. They'll fail to cope effectively and gracefully with the present moment and what's in front of them. They will endure terrible feelings, which may have nothing to do with the present and aren't necessary, right? You can tell that you've come across residue in someone when they're acting frozen, nonsensical, rigid, when they keep saying the same thing over and over again, like, I'm just fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. You're like, wait, you're not fine. I can tell that you're not fine. It doesn't feel fine, right? They become irrational and not themselves. They may actually be in the grip of a memory flash of some kind. They may be flooded with one of these unresolved neural networks. They're seeing images, they're hearing sounds, they're actually in a traumatic experience from the past, and they're in a trance where that is more real to them than what's happening in their physical experience. Does this resonate with people? There's different kinds of patterns, right? There's different ways that patterns get laid into us. When we have triggers, what does that mean? We actually tell each other about triggers. We have a very feeling-phobic culture. And how do we know that? Because we say things like, don't make me go there. What does that mean? Don't push my button. Right? It means I am threatening to have feelings at you. It's like, that's a little crazy. Aren't feelings a part of our experience? Don't they deserve acknowledgement and care and attention? And so, as you get older, the stress snowballs and more of your neural networks are filled with unresolved trauma, and pretty soon there's whole chunks of your life that you're avoiding, or situations that you consciously just don't attend to. So there might be places in town and groups of people and activities that you just avoid because you don't want to be with the unresolved experiences that are collecting in you. And I want you to be completely free. I want you to have the opportunity to recover all of your inherent intelligence, and I want you to be able to do whatever you want despite things that have happened in the past. And the way to clear that is pretty easy. You just need clear, neutral, witnessing attention, and your body will have a break in a minute and do a mini, and you'll see your body will just start catharting. If someone gives you really good, neutral attention, and they're not asking you for something, and you have that agreement with them, you've given their consent, then the things in you that are longing for attention will just overflow, right? They'll just come out. So there's another way that, one other thing I have to say about patterns is we get hurt early and often, mostly by accident when we're babies. We might get a bump or a cold or get hungry and get frustrated or scared, and that's a normal part of life and get taken care of. But the greatest part of our hurts come from contagion, you see, because when we start having our naturally flowing feelings and we're children, the adults around us who have spent most of their lives containing their feelings and cutting them off, they get re-stimulated and triggered by our free expression of feeling. And so what do we hear from adults when we're children? What kinds of threats do we get from adults about having feelings?
Grow up.
Grow up. Don't you cry.
Don't act like a baby.
I'll give you something to cry about.
Don't you get angry at me, young lady.
Right. What other things have people heard? Oh, come on, people on the couch. I know something's happened to you. At least once in your life.
That's a good one. Settle down.
Children should be seen and not heard.
Yeah, knock it off. Yeah.
That's not appropriate. That's not appropriate. That's still not appropriate. You're completely inappropriate. Yep.
Better pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
There you go. So all kinds of really horrible messages, really, when you think about them. Right? People get upset and yell at kids and tell them how bad and embarrassing they've been acting. And then kids get another level of guilt or shame on top of the unreleased feeling that's in there. So we got a lot of recovering to do, right? When there's been enough re-stimulation and when the same hurts happen over and over again, they form patterns which become incorporated into our personalities and even reflected in our physical structure and our body postures. We'll talk about that in class 5. Most patterns are latent. You don't feel the distress all the time, but it lies underneath waiting to be pulled up by a similar enough event. And we see these things as our problems, the things that we kind of wake up thinking about. Chronic patterns happen when we're hurt so frequently over such a long period of time that the unreleased emotional energy from past feelings becomes pervasive, and we think, that's the way that I am. So there's a lot of things that we consider to be our personality or our viewpoint that are constantly restimulated patterns that play all the time. They're kind of like glasses that you see the world through. Does that make sense to you? Okay. Enough about that. We've talked about the inherent healing process, right? So what blocks the healing process is mainly the lack of an attentive, loving person to give us neutral, witnessing attention. There's a vast shortage of people who know how to truly pay attention to someone. And we grow up with chronic feelings of never having enough personal attention. This is due to similar hurts instilled in the adults we depended on, and also in the isolating structure of our culture, where we're supposed to live in these little bitty family houses, right? Which makes it very hard for parents to get the help that they need and to feel resourced enough to extend themselves to their children. Our culture also confuses the healing process with the hurt itself. We think if someone's crying, we should interrupt them and get them to stop, then they'll be all better. We don't realize that the crying itself was what would make the hurt dissolve. No form of emotional release is better than any other form. So crying or laughing or raging or shaking or yawning, those are all equally valid and all equally useful for releasing the distress, for being in catharsis. But we're going to have different triggers about which ones we can be with comfortably. Everyone keeps trying to get attention because we're so intelligent and our body's so smart. We keep trying to get attention from each other all the time. You know this because most of our socialization, I would say to you, about 85% of the time we spend socializing with other people is unconscious clienting and counseling. It's not very effective, though, because we don't give really good quality attention and we don't have consent when we're doing it. So I'm just suggesting we do what we're already doing with consent and healthy boundaries, really. How about that? Like to have a consent culture? Right? In co-counseling, we structure our time together so that we create a safe time for each person to take turns. Okay, so now we're going to take a little break and do more minis because we're good at that. So find someone that you didn't already talk to when you came in. Yes, I'm sorry. So you weren't here earlier. What we're going to do is take turns just neutrally, non-judgmentally, listening to the other person who's going to talk about any feelings that came up about what we just learned in the theory.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you switch and do it the other way. Now what I want you to do is we're going to practice helping each other ground. And how we do that is Mark is going to be the person that's practicing grounding, and I'm going to harass him a little. Like this. So think of something that's upsetting to you or that's not pleasant, and then I'm going to try to knock you off your center. Right? All right? And then breathe deep and think of how you felt in the beginning when we were doing the grounding and you got calm and centered. And imagine that you can actually stay centered. Right? And then I'm going to try to knock you off the center. And I'm just asking you to notice the somatic difference. What is your sensory, what is your felt experience difference of being grounded or not grounded? Okay? So play with that. Each of you should have the experience one way or the other. That is fabulous. So the main thing that I want you to begin to notice is your felt experience. And we're going to talk about that right now in terms of looking at Dan Siegel's mind sight and coming up with a more modern definition of what human beings are and how they work. So we started out with the grassroots experiential definitions, and now we're going to go into the kind of brain science, and there's a brand new field of study, just like psychology was born in the 40s. There's a new field of study called interpersonal neurobiology. What's important about that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dan Siegel and Mindsight. So he is the spearhead of this newly emerging field, interpersonal neurobiology, and it redefines our concept of human beings. It says that the human mind is a relational and embodied process that regulates the flow of energy and information. So in this definition, we have this beautiful triangle that I made for you. This is the vortex that we are. This is the vortex that we are. We are the flow of energy and information between 3 points. The mind, which is our consciousness and extends beyond our physicality. Our brain, which is our physicality and includes our entire nervous system, both hemispheres of our brain, everything that has sensory precepts, so our nose, mouth, skin, everything that receives information. And then the third point is our relationships. So Dan Siegel was a child psychologist for about 25 years, and he's a leading expert in the field of attachment study. What happens from 0 to 4 or 5 when we're born through when we start having our own little autonomous self and our brain is completely finished in terms of its different organs and stuff taking shape. Our nervous system actually, and he's one of the people that has found this out through studying, doesn't ever stop being plastic. So because of his work, we know about neuroplasticity, and we know that we can create new neural pathways at any time by using our mind, developing the skill of mind sight, to have intentions, to grow neural networks, and to change our behavior. So we can use our mind to engage our brains and choose relationships that create the kind of relatedness and the patterns that we want to have. And we can start creating a calm and connect circuitry, which we would have inherently if we didn't experience medicalized birth, and move away from the default of fight or flight, which floods our bodies with adrenaline, cortisols, and testosterones, and move towards calm and connect, which is the serotonin, oxytocin, and occasional dopamine high path. Does that make sense to people?
Yes.
All right, so say this again because I know it's kind of hard to take this in. The triangle of well-being reveals 3 aspects of our lives. Relationships, mind, and brain form 3 mutually influencing points of the triangle of well-being. Relationships are how energy and information is shared as we connect and communicate with one another. Brain refers to the physical mechanism through which this energy and information flows. It includes our whole bodies, all of our sensory precepts, our nervous system, both hemispheres of our brain, our skin. Mind is a process that regulates the flow of energy and information. So rather than dividing our lives into 3 separate parts, this triangle actually represents 3 dimensions of one system of energy and information flow. Mind, brain, and relationships are not separate elements of life. They are irreducible aspects of one interconnected triangle of well-being. I'm just going to stop there and see if anybody has anything to say about that, or how is that landing for you?
Could you go over the brain part again, Terry? Because I feel like I missed the brain part of that.
So this whole, let me get out of the chair. This whole thing is your brain in this definition. So your physicality.
The physicality.
Your physicality. So your brain, your neural networks, which are complete from the top of your head to the tip of your toes vertically, the 2 hemispheres of your brain, and anything that receives sensory information. So your entire skin, and then especially your eyes, ears, nose, mouth, the things that can taste, touch, and feel, right? Now, don't worry too much about like writing this down or figuring it out, because you'll hear it several times. We're going to see there's videos that you can go and watch on your own time. There's charts and diagrams that you can see. So it's not something that I want you to get intellectually or conceptually. What's important about it is we're redefining human beings in a way that is about the flow of information and energy. And that is something that we totally have the capacity to choose how we are going to grow, what neural networks we want to develop, and that capacity is basically evidence that this grassroots theory that says our intelligence is vast and unlimited is the truth. So what I'm pointing out is that we've had this grassroots system that's been going since the 50s, and then we have this quantum physics and neurobiology coming over here, and they're meeting here in this personal place where we are, and they can inform each other. So if you have friends that are like, oh, you guys are witches, you're so woo, all that stuff is like blah, 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 then you can say, hey, well, let me show you some brain science here. Maybe you're going to be super rational, so let me show you how they know the brain works now. And if you're somebody that doesn't like science, you can approach it from the other way. Does that make sense? Okay. What else I want to say? Dan Siegel's work was developed over the last 20 years. His first book came out in 1999. And ever since then, there's a whole section of Penguin Books that publishes their book. They have over 40 books now of other scientists and researchers that are focusing on this field of interpersonal neurobiology. I truly believe, as someone that was a psychiatric social worker, got a graduate degree, and worked in the field of mental health, that this system is going to replace mental health because it's more precise and because it just declares 9 fields of integration of neural functioning that need to be integrated, right? 9 fields that need to be integrated, and it's all based on how it works. And he's very clear about where trapped emotions clog the system and what you can do to reintegrate them and unwind it. And the system that he articulates is the system that I've been practicing for over 30 years as peer counseling. He uses different words. So what I'm doing is putting those 2 systems together. All right?
Terry, can this process also be used to heal physical ailments as well, physical disease as well? Has that research been done?
Yes, because your brain is a part of the equation, and it's one of the tripod stands of the 3 parts of who you are. Yeah. So, and I can really recommend the book Mind Sight. Last night or Sunday night in Jim's living room, somebody looked it up and it was $9 used on Amazon, and I'm like, go get it. You can diagnose yourself, see what fields of integration need help, and I highly recommend that. Now I'm going to introduce the idea of our 6th and 7th senses, okay? By using language from Nala Walla, who is a local, she lives in Nordsland on the Olympic Peninsula. She's an ecosomatics practitioner. I'm going to tell you what that word means in a minute. And she's a dancer, and she got a self-design degree from Gaia University. And then she wrote a really brilliant piece, which is available on the learning website that you have access to, called Body as Place, a Somatic Guide to Re-indigenization. In other words, how can we feel at home in our own bodies? So that essay is really brilliant.
Right up on this side.
Okay. In Cascadia Holistic Peer Counseling, we will be specifically focusing on the intentional development and neural networks for our 6th and 7th senses. The 6th sense is soma, or the felt experience of the body. The 7th sense is self-awareness of the mind, or mind sight. To help you understand what the 6th and 7th senses are, I'll share excerpts from the work of local Cascadian ecosomatic practitioner Nala Walla and the LA-based neurobiologist and psychiatrist Dan Siegel. Ecosomatics, a working and playing definition. Ecosomatics is an emerging interdisciplinary field which connects movement education, improvisation, healing arts, psychology, ritual, performing arts, and good old-fashioned play with ecological consciousness, which is, in my world, shorthand for witchcraft, just saying. The practice of ecosomatics heals the separation between mind, body, and earth by encouraging direct sensory perception of one's body, both in the natural environment and as the natural environment. So your body is a natural environment. In order to understand ecosomatics, we must first grasp the distinction between soma and body. When you look at me, you can see that I have a body. What you cannot see is my proprioceptive or felt sense of my own body, which is my soma. In 1976, Thomas Hanna coined the term somatics to distinguish this subtle inner body from the outer gross body. This term is based on the holistic Greek system and concept of soma, which refers to the entire mind-body-spirit system. Thus, somatics refers to the art and practice of sensing the soma, or the body, as experienced from within. The somatic sense is a veritable sixth sense, and it cannot be adequately explained by any of the other 5 categories of taste, touch, hearing, sight, or smell. In an age where experts and professionals in human health field often dole out conflicting diagnoses and ineffective treatments, somatics is an empowering concept that affirms our innate knowledge of our own body and encourages us to participate deeply in our own healing. By turning into our direct sensory experience, we can learn to release habits of tension and pain instead of optimizing for ease, efficiency, and enjoyment. Any movement, sacred or mundane, can be repatterned in this way, from dancing and singing to simply getting in and out of a chair. And here she's directly speaking about the work of Feldenkrais, which at the end of this article and on the website, there's 6 different links to free, open source Feldenkrais practices and exercise that you could start doing tomorrow if you wanted to. And that addresses the can we heal our physical self with these things quite directly. So ecosomatics is the art of sensing the inner body as a way to connect to the greater social and planetary Gaiac bodies. The view of somatics as inseparable from ecological health and sustainability, and the practice of using somatic principles to facilitate and enhance sustainable work in the landscape. In other words, doing gardening, farming, village building, all can be dance and play and integrated movement with a group of people working together. And I'm going to move now to what Dan Siegel says about the sixth sense, okay? What has been called our sixth sense, though some popular uses of the term refer to the ability to see the dead, as in the movie The Sixth Sense. Other perceptual claims, in the 1800s, Charles Bell and later William James apparently used the term sixth sense to refer to our ability to perceive the internal state of the body. So, then he quotes all these different scientists in different articles. I'm skipping that because it's not fun to read. The sixth sense as a term makes sense as we bring perception inward. The first 5 senses bring the outside world into view, and now we're going to bring our internal world into our own perception. The sixth sense would include balance, like when we were just trying to push each other off center, proprioception, knowing your position in space, as well as a sense of hunger, thirst, internal signals from muscles, teeth, pain sensors in the skin. Even sensual touch is part of this interior data. Having a visceral sense, meaning the feelings of your viscera, such as heart, lungs, intestines, would also be included in what has been called enteroception. Taken together, knowing the internal world can be called interoception. The spinal cord layer, called lamina 1, carries this internal data upwards to the various parts of the brain of the skull. Once we say that this is the sixth sense, we can say that the seventh sense is mind sight. So what's mind sight? The seventh sense is mind sight, and it is the process that enables us to monitor and modify the flow of information and energy within that triangle of being I showed you earlier. The monitoring aspect of mind sight involves sensing this flow within ourselves, perceiving in our own nervous systems that we're calling the brain, and within others through our relationship, which involve the sharing of energy and information flow through various kinds of communication. We can then modify this flow through awareness and intention, fundamental aspects of our mind, directly shaping the paths that energy and information flow take in our life. Did you understand what I'm trying to lay out here? Tell me what you got from what I just said, and I'll see if I can put links in.
That the sixth sense is like a person who's witnessing within.
what's going on.
Almost. So Cassie, this is important. An important distinction. The seventh sense, mind sight, is the neutral witness. The sixth sense is our visceral felt experience. So I think for myself as a self-defined witch, my sixth sense is my intuition, that gut feeling.
Okay.
Right? Where I immediately know something, and it is not a conceptual knowing. It's not an idea of something. It's a felt experience of something. It's like when I go, well, let me see how I feel about that.
Right.
And then I know, yes, I want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. It's what people are teaching in Tantra, if they're teaching well, right? For you to return to the awake, alive knowing of your body that has been intentionally shut down and cut out by the socialization process that we were born into.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes.
So the whole process of having these counseling sessions is using the mind sight thing to allow to be a neutral witness so the other person's sixth sense can have a space to restore itself. So we don't tell other people what to do in counseling sessions. We're not giving them advice. We're not controlling them. We're not trying to fix the outcome because their inherent intelligence and divine immanence is right there. We're just going to give it a safe, boundaried space to unwind, express itself, and get rid of its distress while we watch it. Does that land well?
Is that what the relationship part of the triangle is about?
Yes, that is what the relationship part of the triangle is about. Brilliant, Daniel. That's it exactly. So we're going to work on our brain and allow it to be present to its actual experience without editing or censorship. We're going to train our mind to be a neutral fucking witness and get out of its own way, right? Because the mind extends, it's our consciousness. The mind is connected to quasars if we want it to be. And it's seriously, when we do those guided visualizations, we're going into the element earth. That's a real place. We're really going there. We're not going there with the boundaries of our physicality, our brain, but we're going there with our minds and our consciousness. And that mind is hooked up to divinity. And it's instructing us all the time. And if we can get rid of our patterns by just letting ourselves puke out and flush out all the broken, painful experiences we've ever had, not by getting caught up in them and rehearsing the narratives and the drama of them, but by really clearing them, by really being witnessed with love, we can be free of all that stuff. And we can go, hey, this week I want to learn how to be a violin player. So what do I need to do? I need to watch some videos of violin players. My mind needs to witness other people so my mirror neurons can soak up the sponge behavior of that activity. I'll get these diagrams, I'll know how to do it, and I'll set aside this amount of time, and I'll learn that skill. Does that make sense? Jim, we're going to watch that video.
Jim.
Isn't he kind of cute? He's a little Jean-Luc Picard to me. Yeah, because he's so like...
Strong statement.
It is a strong statement. It is. But he's really rational and really calm, and I like that model is so accessible, right? Did it make sense to you?
Yeah, I'm about to flip my lid.
That's right. He also explains in the Mindsight book that the points and the times when you flip your lid, they're actually pretty impersonal. They're very much hardwired into your attachment style and based on what was available to you as a resource between the ages of 0 and 5. Now the good news is, even though that's hardwired, you can inspire yourself to rewire. That's another phrase of it, inspire to rewire. And you can, through this counseling system, determine where the deficits of resource are in yourself and then create a plan to put it in place. And that's what's super, super exciting to me.
Cool.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk to you for a little bit about the class agreements and ethics, that if you were to start the class with us on Thursday, you would need to agree to these things, because I want, again, a consent-based culture. So I need to tell you, there's very few rules, but they're very clear. And I'm going to tell you those now. And let me tell you, when we're done with that, then we're going to have another short paired exercise of presencing and practicing with our 6th and 7th senses. And then we'll do a closing, and we'll be done for the evening, okay? So, class participation agreements. We politely request that you come to all of the classes that you can come to and make it a priority during the time that the class is happening. This is because your attendance is important for the group's feeling of closeness and safety. And each class builds on the previous class in terms of the kind of information that's given. Please arrive on time, as this is a sign of respect to yourself, the other people, the teacher, the material, and the group process. Time management is an essential skill to developing trust in groups. So please look carefully at whether or not you're a person that can be on time, whether or not you actually have the time to come for 3 hours, and see if it's something that you can commit to. Having said that, we're still going to allow for accidents, inclement weather, illness, and things that happen, and I'll meet those things with understanding. I won't take it personally. But again, inspect your own willingness to do this work, okay? There are 7 shared group tasks, and I rewrote them so that they're Cascadian. I really like this, all right? Each class session will provide the opportunity for group members to share power and leadership within the group, cooperating to meet the entire group's needs. So in an example of the constellational thinking, which is the kind of thinking that mothers have to do if they have more than one child, we will each share responsibility for meeting a portion of the entire group's needs by taking on tasks for group maintenance in the following areas. 1, hearth tender, where we notice that food is nutrition as holistic medicine. Hearth tender number 2, where we notice that water and beverages are nutrition as holistic medicine. Role 3 is timekeeper and space tender. This person comes 15 minutes before the class starts and, what we say in Temple, fluffs the room. There are energetic breaks, and all these things are written out longhand. Energetic breaks are the kind of little ecosomatic paired exercises or group exercises that we've been doing. It's to get us integrated and back in a holistic space again. Resource sharing. Every week, one of you will choose a resource from the website. So all the resources that are on there, you'll sample it before the class, and then you'll do a little report on it in the class. Intention setting, opening and closing. I didn't read that for the opening today, so I'll read it at the end. I have lots of books. I'm sure you might have 1 or 2, or favorite poems that have quotes in them that are just really beautiful and set an intention. So this is a gatekeeping function in a group. To have a clear moment, you could ring a bell, you could make an om, you can do whatever you want, but it's an activity that begins and ends the group session. And then the last one is demonstrations. From time to time, right, in every class I'll be teaching you a counseling technique, and I'll need a person to do a demo with me. And when you're doing the demonstration, I'm trying a new counseling technique out, and you're allowing me to demonstrate with you live in front of the room how that works. Okay? So those are the 7 different tasks that we share as a group, and there'll be a sign-up sheet on Thursday, both there in Seattle. And the really groovy thing is when we start doing trades, we can have phone sessions or video chat sessions between the cities. So the pool of people that we will have available for sessioning with will be huge, which is really actually very beneficial. Okay, now I'm going to read the ethical agreements, and I have to read all of them because it's just like in the temple when we talk about consent. I have to read all of them. It's like the fine print, and you have to forgive me because it's kind of tedious for me, but it is actually really important to have these boundaries, and the group won't work well without them. So, ethical agreements for Cascadia Holistic Peer Counseling participants. Everyone participating in classes and other activities of CHPC, that's so I don't have to say the whole 4 words every time, is asked to agree to these basic guidelines. If you feel you have strong disagreement with these basic guidelines and have a reason to believe you may not be able to honor these requests, Please discuss it with me or Jim before Thursday, before taking the class. But outside of what we're talking right now. It's possible to take the class with an intimate partner and agree to not be partnered with them for counseling sessions. In this way, everyone would get access to the theory and foundational agreement on how to be with each other's distress without requiring that you unconsciously or non-consensually client and counsel each other in all of your intimate experiences. Does that make sense? Okay. We have a very strong request that there be a no socializing policy from now until the class ends on April 4th. What does that mean? People are requested to not begin new friendships, new love relationships with those people that they just met for the first time in this group until the group is over. You're asked to keep your activities together focused on exchanging healing time and attention. You may choose to go for walks or take your counseling partner with you to the dentist, but the purpose should always be to exchange healing support time. This helps us stay focused on learning this new way of being together. If you already know someone outside the group, this does not apply. However, we ask that you start to set clear boundaries regarding when you're socializing and when you're counseling. It's best to notice when you're unconsciously clienting or counseling and begin to distinguish these behaviors as they occur in the social exchanges you have with other members of the CHPC community. Is that making sense? This explicitly means do not start social engagements or dates with people who you met for the first time in the class. Please also be careful around business transactions. Don't create new business relationships or initiate new business ventures with people who you have just met in this class. Do not borrow large sums of money. Do not lend large sums of money to a person you just met in this class. Do not begin sharing essential resources such as housing or vehicles with someone that you just met in this class. These boundaries are to prevent the unconscious desire for merging and enmeshment that can be naturally occurring expressions of gratitude when your core frozen needs are getting the attention they have longed for. Trust, however, that any authentic and healthy peer counseling relationship will last while you learn to find a firm foundation for any of your basic needs that are still trying to get met and sated. To be clear on what types of relationships are helpful and encouraged, any form of healing, spiritual, emotional, or physical, is fine to exchange. You're free to attend together or create gatherings focused around healing or consciousness raising. What's the purpose of the no socializing policy? We want to build safety in this group in order to create therapeutic relationships. Over time, we found that it's difficult to maintain more than one form of relationship with our peer counselors. Trying to have any type of social relationship, romantic, sexual, sensuous, or just friendship, or undeclared attraction, in addition to a therapeutic relationship with someone, can be problematic and requires strong, clear boundaries. Both the social and therapeutic aspects of relationship tend to get blurred and murky. And here are some of the reasons that we've discovered this is so. Unaware expectations. We all feel isolated by the oppressive patterns of our upbringing and socialized patterns. We may have a sense of desperation about meeting friends and lovers. Counselors are in a special state of awareness when they're counseling us, giving great attention and keeping their attention away from their own distress. So it's easy to unconsciously expect them to always be available for that kind of great quality attention in other situations. Let me tell you, that is not fun to have happen, right? Soulmate syndrome. Sometimes the healing trades will be the first time that a person has either received or given positive, loving, and unattached attention from another person. You may think, finally, I found someone who understands the person of my dreams, and interactions in social settings are much less structured and much more likely to trigger distress patterns. So please remember that according to CHPC theory and experience, we are made of relationships. So when we begin to have emotional distress in our social experiences with someone who is also in the class with you, those problems will have impact on the entire group. We want to avoid an acceleration of conflict or discomfort that would cause any one of us to feel the desire to leave the group. Peer counseling relationships are precious and rare opportunities to be completely, non-judgmentally accepted for who we are. Confusion around confidentiality. When we're having a dual relationship that includes both social time and therapeutic sessions, it can become difficult to remember what was said in a confidential session and what was said in a social setting. This confusing turns into a violation of privacy and confidentiality and can harm both your friendship and your peer counseling. Core distress around our unmet needs for touch can only be integrated in therapeutic spaces. An important part of the foundational theory of CHPC is that none of us received all of our needs for touch and closeness during our formative years. We all have frozen needs for touch, love, appreciation, and attention. Yep, it's sad. Only by creating clear boundaries and a group norm of consent culture that relies on verbal consent by default can we create a safe context for healing our unmet needs inside of our peer counseling sessions. So safe, loving contexts for healing touch and affection. It's our mutual goal to create these contexts for the release of stuck emotions, the unwinding of rigid pattern behaviors, and eventually the complete liberation and emergence from oppressive patterns for all of us. Somatics, the practice of acknowledging our felt sense, the experience and wisdom of our bodies, is an important part of our counseling techniques. So each of us have, at some time, had at least one experience of unwanted touch. If we have a no socializing agreement, the touch and closeness in our sessions and our group healing experiences will have a chance to remain in the context of healing. Trust and physical closeness generate healing in and of themselves by creating a calm and connect circuitry where oxytocin and serotonin is present in our bodies. A worldwide ethic of love will prevail if we have clear boundaries and do not confuse our peer counseling agreements as a request for flirtatious expression or a date. Remember that the integrity of your peer counseling relationship relies on having clear boundaries and a focus on healing. Group agreements and personal sovereignty. Keeping this request for a no socializing policy in mind, please make your own decisions about your own life and how you will relate to the other people you meet in the CHPC class after the course ends. A few people have been able to make dual relationships work well, and others prefer the safety of clearly defined boundaries. As you will it, so will it be. A strong request for notifying the teacher if you decide to break the no socializing policy during the course of the class. If you really feel like you have to do this, have a social relationship with the person you just met, please discuss it with me before you pursue it. Be aware that it often doesn't work well. I've witnessed many useful and healthy healing peer counseling partnerships become interrupted by an attempt to become sexually intimate without strong, healthy boundaries. I've seen several people give up on doing peer counseling after a socializing experiment blew up in their face. So I like to warn people. If you try this during a class series, then your actions will have repercussions for everyone in the class. If you decide to break the no socializing policy and you have not discussed it with me, and I find out anyway, I reserve the right to ask you to leave the class without refunding any money or whatever gift exchange you may have already provided if you choose to break the policy against my request. Please experiment on your own time after the class is over. And I'm asking you to make a commitment to clean it up. So if you violate this one and only rule, which you should be able to do, like if you can't do that, then I'm going to find out anyway, because we're all connected and there's no lying actually possible. We'll know about it, and I will make you responsible for cleaning it up. In other words, you will have to pay for mediation and group sessions for everyone that's been affected by your violation of the agreement. And I'll hold you to that. So sessions look like a 2-person team. Sometimes we do triads, which is great. Taking turns being counselor and client, one after the other. It's important to keep the sessions reciprocal and to give each person an equal amount of time. We'll go into details about how to exchange. There's a sheet that says exactly everything to do, when they can keep with you during the session. But for now, we want to just kind of go over the general part of it. In the beginning, we start out with, like, next week you'll get assigned a 15-minute two-way session. So it's a total of half an hour, and you each get 15 minutes. And then after that, we start doing half an hour each way. By the end of the class, we're encouraging you to do an hour each way, which is a 2-hour session, okay? In general, we want you to be courteous, arrive on time, be responsible about rescheduling as needed, Make the environment safe with no phone calls, no children, no pets, privacy, and whatever's needed to ensure privacy and comfort. You decide who's going first by checking in about who feels like they need it the most or flipping a coin. Don't break or harm anything that's valuable or disrupt the environment with inappropriate noise, meaning like if there's neighbors and they're close or you're in an apartment, you wouldn't scream and do big, deep anger work then because it would upset the social environment. Give the client your complete and aware attention. Listen with full interest and attention. Ideally, be relaxed and cheerful and confident and loving. It's not useful to look worried when they're talking to you. Because, anyway, yeah. The counselor should maintain eye contact. The client doesn't have to, but the counselor should just keep looking in a loving way. And then you do permissive counseling by asking questions, drawing them out. And we have a whole list of what not to do. And all of these things, again, are still in a handout on the lesson plan. Now we're going to do a really cool 6th and 7th sense exercise. Are you ready? So get together with somebody that you haven't already gotten together with tonight. Person A is going to go first, and they are going to, as deeply as they can, explore their 6th sense of felt sensations and sensory information. So they'll just keep reporting on what they're experiencing by talking about what they taste, touch, feel, sense, see, or what the felt experience is inside of their body that's not perceivable by the other person. And they're just going to report. They're going to do this for 3 minutes without stopping. If they pause, person B is going to say, and what else are you experiencing, to prompt them. And that's it. And then we're stopping and exchanging. So the person that's B is providing mindsight, neutral witnessing, and prompting with, what else are you experiencing? And the person A is reporting on their 6th sense of felt experience. Does that make sense? Any questions?
How long again?
3 minutes. I'll tell you. We can start now. My name is Terry, and one thing that I learned tonight, I want you all to say something that you learned or something that felt exciting for you. My name's Terry, and I got really excited by my talking to you about that triangle of well-being, and when Daniel asked me if relationships, right? It just really flowed, because I just put that piece together on Sunday morning and wrote it up Sunday afternoon and delivered it for the first time Sunday night, and it works. There's something in there that's not coming from me that's a bit of a transmission that I got very excited about delivering that. So I hope there'll be other moments of aha like that for me while I'm teaching, because that is a big incentive for me to keep teaching well. How about you?
I'm Alina, and this is my second introduction.
Yeah, right there.
The second introduction got me more excited about actually doing this. I had a better understanding, and I just see how it's going to really impact my life and my relationships. And so I'm excited to get started.
Yay! Woohoo!
Hello again, I'm Amanda. I appreciated a few things, but I actually quite appreciated this last exercise that we just did because it is so simple to check in on how your peers are feeling in their bodies, and it's so enlightening as to what's going on in their minds and what things they'll be able to process.
Good job. Good noticing.
I'm Sam, and the 6th and 7th sense in that the role of counselor and counselee is just like awesome. I'm familiar with this material, and I've never heard it described that way, and it's just right on. It's good.
Keep on rolling.
I'm Brina,
And I feel like there's a lot from this tonight that speaks to me, and I'm very excited to learn more about from the beginning of talking about how patterns are started, and for me particularly anger and how that's expressed in a way that doesn't seem like causing more damage. And like I'm really curious about how to let that happen, unleash that. It feels like a surrender within me of like willing to try that, and I feel really excited about that kind of healing that can happen from that, and transformation of my thought and definition of healing, really expansion, and also the practice we just did as well. Anything with people in our relationships where we're in our authentic selves and expressing and being fully seen and hearing the other person, that just feels like complete healing, transmission. And so I'm excited for all of that, more of that.
Hi, I'm still Comrade Daniel.
Comrade Daniel!
The revolution is still my boyfriend.
Ow!
So it's a good thing we have a pre-existing relationship. Because if I met my boyfriend in this class, we might violate some consent agreements. So I'm feeling real good. I'm
Awesome.
feeling good about it.
Thank you.
Cheers.
I'm Jordan, and I really appreciate having the fog lifted around mental health, about positive interactions with people, because I've been a big fan of becoming a better person every day for decades now, it seems like. And it seems like I've finally found the tools and the resources to actually try some new things that can help change these patterns and cycles that I've been experiencing for my whole life that have just kind of held me back. So I feel liberated. I feel stomach feels tight, nose is itching, but I'm looking forward to coming back to Thursday and all the next and the rest of the class.
You don't have to register for the class and show up on Thursday to get benefit from this. If you give your email address to Jim, he'll invite you to the Canvas Instructure Moodle, and you can get the material and study it on your own at your own pace. I believe if you do it that way, it will take you longer to get it into your life, but you're completely welcome. It's open source. Anything that you get from me, I just want you to tell people where it came from. Just start using it and practice it. And if you want the structure and support of a group of people that are live, you'll absorb it much more quickly, and your communities will benefit from it more deeply in a shorter period of time. Okay, here's the closing, which is my favorite poem, which is going to be read at my wake. All will come again into its strength. The fields undivided and the waters undammed. The trees towering and the walls built low. And in the valleys, people as strong and varied as the land. And no churches where God is imprisoned and lamented like a trapped and wounded animal. The houses welcoming all who knock, a sense of boundless offering in all relations, and in you and me. No yearning for an afterlife, no looking beyond, no belittling of death, but only longing for what belongs to us and serving earth, lest we remain unused. The end. Thank you so much. Blessed be.
Thank you.